Welcome for standing by. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants are in a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer session of the presentation. During that time, to ask a question, press star 1 and clearly record your name for question introduction. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Ms. Dubas. Begin. Thank you again.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, and sorry for starting late. We were having some technical difficulties. So my name is Dubis Correal, and I'm with the Office of Financial Education within the CFPB, and I have with me today two colleagues, Sunena Lehill and Leslie Jones, who are going to talk to you about our latest research on how to help youth build financial capability. So before we start the presentation, I'm going to go through a couple of slides about our Finex. But before I just a second. And before I get started, we have to read our disclaimer that this presentation is being made by CFPB representatives, and it does not constitute legal interpretation, guidance, or advice of the CFPB, and any opinions or views stated by the presenter are the presenter's views. And we always a little bit about what the Bureau is, because we know that we always get new members. The CFP was created by Congress in 2010, and we do write rules, supervise companies, and enforce federal consumer financial protection laws. We take consumer complaints, and we promote financial education. Financial education is an integral part of the Bureau, and that's what we're going to talk to you today. My colleagues and I are with the Office of Financial Education within the Consumer Education and Engagement Division. We do have other offices that focus on specific populations, but today we're going to present a research that the Office of Financial Education has conducted. And our mission here is to educate and empower consumers to make better informed financial decisions. And we do promote effective financial education for consumers through trusted sources. That's why as we have our platform, the Financial Education Exchange, which is an online and in-person information exchange for financial educators such as yourselves. We currently have about 2,000 members, which is very exciting. And through the Finex, you can get the latest news and research on financial education from the CFPB. We also share with Working Well for financial education, and it's also a way for you to connect with your peers. If you look at the bottom of this slide, we have an email address. If you're interested in getting our newsletters, our information, or just signing up for Finex, please email us at cfpb_finex@cfpb.gov, and you'll see it right at the bottom of this slide. And this is just to show you some of the activities that we have done. We have conducted 18 webinars so far. We do it on a monthly basis, the third Thursday of every month. As I mentioned to you, we have more than 1,000 members at this point. And we also conduct regional convenings, and you can see on this slide places where we have been. The idea of those convenings is to exchange information with financial educators across the country. This slide shows some of the tools that we have. We also have research about understanding consumers. We have tools for financial educators, and we also have tools for consumers, and you can access those tools by going to consumerfinance.gov/adult financial education. Our webpage, which you can access from our main page, which is consumerfinance.gov, and you go to resources for educators, and you get to the Finex page. Join us on LinkedIn. If you search for CFPB Financial Education Discussion Group, you can find us there, and you can use that as a platform to exchange information. You can also be part of the conversation on financial education. My colleague Irene Skricky, who is the lead of Finex Moderate's LinkedIn. So we invite you to join us if you can. And also we have resources for youth, which is the topic for today. And on this page, we house information on what we on the state and national policy makers and local and state practitioners of financial education for youth. And we also have information on teaching pedagogy and building blocks. So what we are going to hear today, you can find it on this page. We also have a tool targeted to young people who are getting ready to go to college, or parents of young people who are getting ready. And this provides a set of tools targeted to students and families. It helps evaluate options when financing higher education. It also helps compare costs and financial aid offers. And you can shop for a loan or look at options to repay student loan debt. So we invite you to visit our Paying for College tool. So today's topic is evidence-informed approaches to help youth gain financial capability. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sunena Lehil.
Great. Thank you, Dubis. Hi, everyone. I'm Sunena Lehil. Thank you so much for joining us today. So before I jump right into talking about some of the new research that we have on youth financial capability, let me tell you a little bit about who we are in the Office of Financial Education. We have a small team focused on children and youth, and we really work on sort of 3 areas in the youth portfolio. We're looking at how we can support financial education efforts in the sort of state and local levels. So we engage community leaders who are maybe interested in advancing financial education and policy. In the second area of work, there's the practices portfolio, which is really focused on what tools, resources, and insights we can share to educators to help them to, effectively teach financial education. And then we also have an area of work focused on parents and caregivers, just recognizing what an influential role they have in supporting financial capability. So these are the 3 areas that we work in, and I particularly focus on the leaders portfolio, policy leaders. Leslie Jones, who I will later be handing it off to, works in the practitioner side of the work. So just to give you sort of a sense of the type of work that we're doing here. So on the slide, I want to actually tell you a little bit about some work that we've done on looking at how children and youth develop financial capability. In September, we published a report titled Building Blocks to Help Youth Achieve Financial Capability, and you'll find that report on our website. It's already on the website if you want to sort of look through it as we're doing the presentation. Just to give you a little bit of a background about what this is, we wanted to understand, what are the developmental origins of financial capability and well-being, and also how and when do these fundamentals of financial capability develop. There's, I think, a general sort of understanding that it's important to start young, and many of these abilities, characteristics, qualities, and skills are sort of starting to form early, but, I think little was sort of widely known about what exactly that is and what that looks like. So the developmental framework that I will be presenting to you today really takes an important step in doing that. So you'll learn about a new developmental framework which deepens our understanding about how people develop financial capability, and then I'll also talk about some recommendations for those who are interested in implementing the framework into your work. I should mention that the underlying research that I'll be discussing was led by CFPB under contract to us, CFPB, and the team included academic experts, including University of Madison, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and ICF International. So with this great team of subject matter experts, we created a developmental framework and recommendations which I'll be describing in the next few slides. And then when I'm done, I will hand it off to Leslie to talk about some tools that are available to practitioners and teachers who might be wanting to implement this in their classroom setting. So we're looking at the About the Research slide. So let me tell you about sort of the methodology behind the research really quickly. So the developmental model consisted of 3 stages of investigation, an analysis of the coded, do you want to go back one slide? So it included looking at CFPB's previous adult financial well-being research to understand what experiences in youth contribute to their financial identities and values. The second area of work is extensive review of published research to uncover what is known and not yet understood in academic research in the fields of consumer science, developmental psychology, and education. And then we also consulted with national experts representing perspectives from a variety of disciplines to gain insights about the insights that are not yet reflected in published literature. So we talked to experts in child and adolescent development, education, financial capability, and consumer sciences. And really what we were trying to do is trying to identify what is well known, what are some things where it's consensus, and to identify them and bring it all together, because there's a lot of sort of great work and research being done in these different disciplines. And so we wanted to sort of bring it all together because financial capability really is an interdisciplinary issue. As I mentioned before, this led to the creation of a developmental framework, which includes 3 building blocks on the next slide and information about when and how they develop. Okay, looking at on this slide is the 3 building blocks of financial capability. So the 3 building blocks are executive function, financial habits and norms, financial knowledge, and decision making. And for each building block, we identify what it is, what it supports, and examples of it in financial application. So executive function is a cognitive processes used to plan, focus attention, remember information, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. Financial habits and norms, the second building block, refers to the values, the standards, routine practices, and rules of thumb that we use to routinely navigate our day-to-day financial life. And it is developed through a process called financial socialization, which I'll talk more about in later slides. But just an example here might be the system that you use, make sure that you're paying bills on time. That might be something that you've developed by watching, or what maybe your parents did or your siblings did, but basically learning sort of what have other people done and then figuring out what works for you. The building block is financial knowledge and decision-making skills. This refers to familiarity with financial facts and concepts, the ability to do financial research and make conscious and intentional financial decisions. So an example here might be doing comparison shopping on an auto loan, or deciding, making decisions around paying for retirement. For young people, it might be deciding what college to go to and how to pay for it. So those are the 3 building blocks. The distinction between habits and norms and knowledge and decision making is that habits and norms are referring to things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And these are decisions that we make automatically without really having to stop and think. And knowledge and decision-making, on the other hand, these are sort of the harder decisions that we make that require us to weigh our options, consider sort of different pieces of information in order to sort of arrive at the right decision. So one is sort of the fast, easy thing, the decisions that we make, and then the other ones are the more deliberate ones. So in the next slide, you'll see how these building blocks develop across key developmental stages. And so, what we want to stress is that these 3 building blocks develop over time, and it really is a continuous process. So what we've done in this slide, I know there's a lot of information there, so I'm going to try to break it down. So what we did was we took the 3 building blocks, which I just described, and we mapped it across 3 developmental stages. So the 3 developmental stages are early childhood, which is generally speaking ages 3 through 5, middle childhood, which is ages 6 through 12, and adolescence and young adulthood, which is ages 13 through 21. So I might refer to this age group as teens to be more succinct so that I don't have to say adolescence and young adulthood in every sentence. So you know, these three age ranges are based on what is most commonly used in education and child psychology. So we're really modeling what we saw were sort of the common practices. And now looking at the table, what the arrows point out is that the building blocks develop over time, and they develop across developmental stages. And it really is a continuous process. And the check marks with the circle represent important windows of opportunity when youth typically and most readily are able to acquire that particular building block. So during these windows, cognitive and environmental factors combine to make this an ideal age for learning particular skills, behaviors, and attitudes. Developing the building blocks may be much more difficult when that window's opportunity is missed. In other words, the best thing that we can do in early childhood is to engage children in activities that build their executive function. In middle childhood, because habits and norms are developing quite rapidly, financial education programs should engage youth in activities that help them to acquire healthy values, habits, and norms. And lastly, in teen years, financial education efforts can focus on teaching and providing safe opportunities to practice applying their financial knowledge, skills, and decision-making. This developmental framework illustrates sort of what happens typically, and it's important to keep in mind that there can be individual differences. And, you know, we recognize that, you know, to ensure that all youth have ample opportunities to develop each of these building blocks, just because of the wide sort of age ranges that we're talking about, it's important to recognize that it's, you know, needs to be supported in a variety of settings, you know, including homes, schools, after-school programs, and also in workplaces. So on to the next slide. So for those interested in implementing the developmental model into their work, the report also provides 4 recommendations for supporting financial capability, and I'll talk about those on the next slide. Okay, so the recommendations are, 1 is to teach youth financial research skills. This is particularly true for those of you who might be working with teens and adolescents. The second is provide children and youth with experiential learning opportunities. The third is helping parents and caregivers to more actively shape their children's financial socialization, particularly in the middle childhood range. And then in early childhood, focus on developing executive function. So if you think about it like peeling back the layers of an onion, at the core of this is executive function, which is recommendation 4, which really begins to develop most rapidly in early childhood, but its development continues all the way into their teen years and young adulthood. So if they didn't get the sort of executive function development opportunities in the early years, there is an opportunity to continue to sort of support that as they grow older. So financial habits and norms are developing early in life and much earlier than I think maybe was typically thought of. And this is really happening through a process called financial socialization. So we really encourage financial educators to consider approaches that engage and help parents and caregivers to get involved. And other potential influencers in terms of financial socialization could also be peer. So, you know, peer or near peer-based education. And as kids reach middle and high school years, they need more opportunities to practice and experience safely the kinds of financial decisions that they will likely encounter. So recommendation 2 really emphasizes how important experiential learning is to building financial capability. And finally, recommendation 1 is really about teaching young people financial research skills. Because most financial major decisions that we make require us to gather information through research, determining the reliability of that information, using that information to consider trade-offs, and to act on that information. You know, doing this requires critical thinking and analytical skills, and financial capability cannot be fully achieved without it. So that's, on the whole, the 4 recommendations. In the next few slides, I'm going to drill down a little bit more into each one of them, but probably in the interest of time, I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk more about them. So next slide. So we're starting with early childhood, focus on executive function. So, as I've mentioned before, research really suggests that executive function is really critical to achieving financial capability and well-being later in life. During this time, children by this I mean, particularly in early childhood, children start by learning basic financial concepts. For example, people work in exchange for pay, or the idea of sharing money or other resources like Halloween candy. Therefore, executive function training can be done in a variety of contexts, and including financial contexts. So an example here might be make-believe play activities where kids get to set a goal, whether that's maybe like creating a grocery list, and then they get to act out going grocery shopping to see, how well they stick to the grocery list. So there are also opportunities to support executive function practices at home with support from parents and caregivers. And in the report, we talked in great deal about ways that can support executive function in a financial context, and also executive function practices at home. And we also direct readers to existing resources where you can find high-quality executive function sort of related activities. On the next slide, we're talking about, helping parents and caregivers to support children's financial socialization. So financial socialization is this ongoing process by which children and youth are developing the financial attitudes, habits, norms that really guide their financial behaviors. And this is sort of the automatic day-to-day behaviors, decisions that we make without having to stop and think. Children are developing values, norms, and habits by observing the choices and behaviors of their peers and adults in their lives. And because financial socialization is happening whether we realize it or not, parents are watching what their parents are doing, children are watching their parents and those adults around them and, drawing conclusions about what that means. So it's really an important window of opportunity for parents and caregivers to more explicitly teach and model healthy financial values and behaviors. And examples of ways of doing this might be involving children in routine financial activities, such as setting a budget and helping them to make small spending decisions. And in the report, we also talk about some other themes, just to give you sort of a heads about what you'll find is using strength-based approaches. I know when we talk about this recommendation, a lot of the questions that we get is, parents might not feel confident or comfortable about talking about money with their children, or they not feel like an expert. And so, we think that there is some promising strategies for using a strength-based approach that helps parents to, use the things that they do feel confident about. It might not be money, but they might be really good managers of time or other resources in their lives, and they can use those as examples also to sort of teach healthy money habits and values. So, so in addition to strength-based approaches, we also explore ways that you can leverage everyday activities to support financial socialization, so it doesn't have to be this one-off thing that parents have to do. And then there are some programs that use, like a two-generation approach where the programs are focusing on improving the parents' financial capability while also supporting their children's. So those are just some of the themes that we explore on that recommendation. Moving on to recommendation number 3 is providing experiential learning opportunities throughout childhood and youth. Experiential learning opportunities support financial capability by encouraging children and youth to take an initiative so that they're really in the driver's seat, make independent decisions, experience the result of their choices in a safe environment, and learn through reflection. So children and youth in all ages of development can benefit from experiential learning, whether it's a simulation that's mobile-based or one where they sort of act out in like in a reality fair, or it could be getting the opportunity to save in a savings account at school or where parents. There's a range of sort of ways to support experiential learning opportunities. And in this report, we talk about sort of key elements of experiential learning, and so just some of them is supporting independent decision-making with some guidance, promoting young people to reflect on their experience, taking advantage of teachable moments, giving them opportunities for repeated practice, and encouraging them to engage in activities like planning and goal setting around that experiential learning activity. So now moving on to the next slide, teach youth financial research skills. So most major financial decisions that us adults make require us to gather information through research, use that information to consider trade-offs, and act on that information in ways that serve our life goals. And it also allows us to be able to sort of carry out personal financial research. In carrying out purposeful financial research, some qualities are really essential. Being able to decide what sources of information is reliable and trustworthy, being able to think critically, is this person telling me information that is in my best interest? And then also being able to sort of have some analytical skills so that you can really do the cost-benefit analysis. I think that financial research skills you can start to teach it in middle childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. In the earlier years, it might be, using sort of case studies, and then as they get older, you could perhaps do this with like paying for college, for example, as an assignment in a classroom setting or also in the home. So that's the final recommendation. On the next slide, just want to sort of wrap up so that I can hand it off to Leslie. Just bringing it all together, what does this research mean for financial educators? This research provides evidence-based insights and promising strategies, as well as a more nuanced framework for understanding the path to financial capability for young people. When thinking about what children and youth need to learn to reach financial capability and well-being later in life, our research suggests that we should be thinking about it much more broadly to include things like executive function, financial habits and norms, in addition to teaching of financial facts. And given the sort of different dimensions involved, right, supporting it in the home, in schools and after-school programs, and also in employment programs where a lot of the financial decisions get made, we see a role for a range of actors in supporting children's financial capability, including schools, parents, youth programs, policymakers, and financial institutions. So I'm going to wrap it up there. On the next slide, I will just really quickly let you know that in addition to sort of developing the framework that I just described to you in the recommendations, we also have a number of resources that we've created, some of them along with some partners that really put this framework into practice. So I'll tell you really quickly about what they are, and then Leslie can talk in a little bit more detail about them. So the resources are Money As You Grow Book Club, and the Youth Personal Finance Pedagogy. So with that, I will hand it off to Leslie to talk about our Youth Personal Finance Pedagogy tool. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be with you today and to tell you a little bit about a personal finance pedagogy that we developed after really digging into the building blocks research and seeing what it could do for parents and kids, and trying to figure out how we can translate that into what educators can do to help kids in their classrooms. So we know that we know how children learn concepts. They learn informally and indirectly at home through action with family and friends. We know that a parent is a child's first teacher, but once that child enters that formal education in school, subjects like math have a framework, or as we say in education, a pedagogy, of how you teach children a specific topic. So this personal finance pedagogy connects our building block research of what students need to learn in order to have financial well-being as adults to the classroom. CFPB released this youth personal finance pedagogy and teaching tools back in September. Pedagogy is a guide to teach personal finance skills to children. And you'll see the building blocks throughout this whole thing. We want teachers to improve executive functioning skills such as planning and problem solving. We hope that they will create and encourage positive financial habits and effective money management. We want them to build financial research skills so that children can compare and contrast options, and want to make sure that as they do this, they're making sure that students are working safely so that as they practice, they will not hurt the financial their futures when and I'll explain that in just a moment. The pedagogy supports all competencies. For example, memorizing the rule of 72 is incredibly helpful, but how many of us actually have it memorized? This pedagogy guides the teacher by suggesting that along with teaching the rule of 72, they should reinforce the general message of the rule, save early for maximum savings. We know that message is a positive financial habit for effective money management. Educators should also make sure that students remain safe while going online, as I mentioned earlier. And for example, some websites have great information, and you'd love to have your students working on that website because you know that they'd really benefit. But as the students are logging on to the website, it asks does to provide too much PII, with that personally identifiable education or information. And so participating is probably not as safe as we would like. I want you to be careful out there, and so you need to remember to balance giving students the opportunity to practice decision-making skills with making sure that they're safe online. Let me show you how a teacher can use this model to identify teaching techniques. The wheel helps teachers quickly identify the best teaching techniques and learning strategies to implement the personal finance pedagogy. Let's look at the financial habits and norms section. So a teacher wanting to enhance a student's financial habits and norms who's using this model would then look to see that a simulation or blended learning activity would probably be ideal for their students. Maybe they might think about using a reality fair or an online product, or try to establish a bank and school program for their students. And that information that I'm talking about right now is in the blue section of this tool. And you start from the inner part of the wheel and you work yourself out to see your teaching techniques and learning strategies. And the far right corner of this slide, you'll also see some government programs that we've identified. They're examples of simulations that are available for teachers to use in the classroom. And a couple that I like to mention are On Guard Online. It's wonderful. And I think that is produced by the FTC. And if you've ever had to teach taxes, then Understanding Taxes at irs.gov is another wonderful site, and that can help they can both help you reinforce financial habits and norms, as well as, to some degree, your students' financial skills and decision making. All right, that is the end of the personal finance pedagogy, and I'd like to wrap up with Money to Grow. That is for parents and caregivers. So even if you don't work with the age 3 to 12 crowd, if you are a parent or a grandparent, you will probably find the Money as You Grow resources beneficial to explore. Money as You Grow is an online resource for parents and caregivers. Here, parents, grandparents, caregivers can find activities, games, and discussion guides that help children acquire the building blocks of financial capability outside of the classroom. CFPB took a previously existing resource, updated it, and made sure that it was aligned with our developmental framework, as we've described in the building blocks report, and that Gina went over with us. And I also want to let you know that there's a new piece to this resource. It's called the Money as You Grow Book Club. It has recommendations for children's books that children can read to help learn key money concepts. And so that's a wonderful site for just any of us to visit. And I think that wraps up what I have to say, and I'll pass it back on to Dubis and Sunena.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Sunena, for such a great presentation. Now we would like to open it up for questions. Can you provide instructions as to how they can ask questions, please?
Yes, thank you. At this time, we'll begin the question and answer session of the conference. To ask a question, please press star 1 and record your name clearly for question introduction. Again, to ask a question, star 1 and clearly record your name for question introduction. One moment, please, to see if you have questions.
Well, we get questions. I got a question for Sunena. Can you provide examples of how the framework has been used in evaluation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, this framework is really new, and we just published the report in September, but it was a project that was many years in the making. And so I got to sit on a panel at a conference recently with another researcher who was involved with this research, Elizabeth Otters-White. And so the one example that I can give you is that in the My Classroom Economy evaluation that the University of Madison Center for Financial Security did, they developed evaluation questions for each of the building blocks, or for at least 2 of the 3 building blocks, the financial habits and norms and financial knowledge and decision making. And so those evaluation questions were really used, the evaluation research that they did for Classroom Economy. So that's one example of something that's already out there, and we're really excited and pleased to see, a variety of different stakeholders using this developmental framework to guide their thinking.
Great, Sunena. Michelle, do we have any questions?
No questions at this time, but as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 and clearly record your name for question introduction. One moment, please, to we gather questions.
Okay. And I would like to remind you that you can use the chat function on your screen to ask questions as well.
Questions at this time.
Okay. If I may just make another addition, for those of you who might be sort of taking in all of the information that we've just, thrown at you, particularly the 3 building blocks, if you're trying to sort of think through what does that actually look like and what could be potential sort of capability milestones for each of the sort of different stages, developmental stages that we talked about, we have this really handy table that we've created on page 57 of the Building Blocks report that kind of walks you through what does this look like for each of the building block across the different developmental stages, and that's a really nice sort of place to go to if you're trying to really think through what this really means and what this means for perhaps potentially the work that you're doing.
Great. One last chance in case people have questions
or comments.
To make a question or a comment, please press star 1 and clearly record your name. One moment to see if last questions or comments come in. And I'm no comments at this time.
I think we will adjourn. Thank you so much, Sunena and Leslie, for the presentation. I have on the screen the website address in case you're interested to access the tools. And thank you so much for your participation today, and we will set information about our next webinar in the next couple of weeks. Have a great day. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
This concludes today's conference. All participants may disconnect at this time. Thank you again for your participation.